Thank you for coming. I'm here to talk about my brand and how I started with local manufacturing and how I think it's a great idea for Dubai to embrace local manufacturing and how to craft high fashion on a local level. I've been a brand in New York City for over 20 years. I have a PowerPoint, which I've never done before. This is my first time, so I didn't realize I could keep changing the slides myself. So anyway, I started as a very small shop in New York's East Village, and I built from a very small company that was manufacturing about 10 pieces at a time to manufacturing over 1,000 per style. I have some pictures from my most recent fashion show from this fall, and the brand is all about handcrafted and things made locally. So right now there's pictures from my most recent show. So what we try to achieve in New York is to have my own atelier where we create everything from the fabrics, the prints, the patterns, the embroideries, the color story. It takes a lot to be able to put together an entire line that makes sense and is cohesive. But one of the things that I have at my advantage is that I have so many great artisan and craftsmen that work with me that are right around the corner from my office. So I do a lot of things within a 10-block radius. I mean, oftentimes things have to go in a package off to China or India to get made for special things that we can't do in New York. But basically, I've built my brand around working in New York and really taking the best advice from the people around me that help with manufacturing. This is my most recent runway show that just took place in New York in September. It was all about bright colors juxtaposed against soft, romantic blush tones, pinks, and red was our bold color statement, worked off of splashes of white and patchwork of leather prints. This was one of my favorite shows, which was my neon show. Later you'll see Nicki Minaj actually wore that pattern and made a big statement with one of her MAC debuts. So now we move into the most recent ad campaign. And what I would like to just get you guys used to, like, what my brand is all about. We've recently gotten to the point where the company is known enough to start adding licensing extensions. So I have a great swimwear license. And I have just launched a home license that should be, oops, okay. So now we have some celebrity shots, which I do dress everyone from Michelle Obama, Ariana Huffington, to Emma Roberts, Nicki Minaj, Taylor Swift. So the brand has become something that is synonymous for all women, from ages like 13 to their 50s, which is, I'm really proud of that, because I'll go to my shops and I'll see lots of families in their shopping. I'll see women with their daughters, and everyone is enjoying and everyone is finding something that works for them. Here are my shops. I have a shop on Madison, and the other shop is my shop in City Center in Las Vegas. The store design was developed and brought to life by my Uncle Raymond. So I have a great sort of family business happening. My director of digital media is my nephew Jimmy, who's here tonight, and my sister Michelle works with me on the home line, and also just a lot of fun to be around. So we have a target woman that we love, and we work a lot with bloggers. But our woman that is really representative of my brand is someone who loves fashion, who loves color, who has fun getting dressed, someone who's very bold and confident, someone who has a busy lifestyle and needs clothing that can take her lots of places. There's the home line. So the home license just happened, and it's going to be in stores in January, and we've got lots of exciting stores that picked up the line. It's going to be all bedding, but beautiful patterns and prints, things that were inspired from my runway collections in the past. It's fun to bring new life to prints and fabrics that I fell in love with over the years and start them up all over again as like bedding. To me, it like revives something that I loved. And with homeware and bedding, you get to live with something more often. It's not like a dress that you put away and you never get to pull it back out again. So I really am enjoying doing the home collection. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit because we're not, okay. So my company has been very strong with social media, and social media is one of the things that we've worked at for a while to send our message out about who the brand is, how we are political in trying to fight to save New York City's garment center. One of the highlights of the last spring show was that we were the second most watched show that was broadcast from the IMG website. So we had 80,000 viewers who watched the show live. So that was 80,000 people who stopped their lives and watched my show live stream on the day and the time of the show. So we're really proud of that. And I'm excited that people understand and want to see the brand and see what we're doing. Now this is going to get easier because I'm just going to talk about how I got to where I am and my story. I was raised in a small town in Youngstown, Ohio that was there was a university there, and my dad's a professor of abstract. He was an abstract expressionist painter, and my mom was a school teacher. But we were traveling all the time, so we have a little bit of a gypsy spirit because we were driving back and forth to Los Angeles every summer because most of our relatives lived in California. So I grew up with this sort of wanderlust and this love of adventure. And my parents were really creative, and nothing ever was daunting to them. If we needed furniture, they built it. If we needed a house, all the relatives got together and they built the house. So when you have craftsmanship in your family, you can then bring it through into your life, and it's not as daunting, or it doesn't feel like it's something that's hard to do. So I think that, coming up with that kind of comfortable feeling about creating things was what made me feel so natural about being able to create and manufacture my own line. So there, we were kind of a hippie family, as you can see in that picture. There was a lot of, that was me in the early days when I first started my company. I went to school in Ohio and then moved to New York and went to the Fashion Institute of Technology. When I graduated there, I had my first job lasted 3 weeks and I got fired. It was really, really devastating. I was in a closet sketching, and then somehow they were like, okay, we're done with you. And then the next job after that, I went on to work for like kind of terrifying Garmento people that you always hear about in those stories. So I was afraid every day while I was at work. So I left that one after about 3 months. And then my following job was my dream job. It was a job that opened up so many doors for me. I ended up working in a boutique, and it was a boutique that I had gone to visit all the time because I was madly in love with the product in that store. It was everything from Gaultier and Elia and Romeo Gigli and Dolce & Gabbana, all the great designers of the late 80s. And I was in there, I begged the woman for the job because she was hiring a designer who worked on private label for her customers. So if they needed a gown and, for something special, I was there. So I was her custom person. And after a few months, she started taking me to Europe on buying trips with her. And that's when I fell completely, totally in love with fashion, because I saw shows in the Tuileries in Paris. I remember seeing a Thierry Mugler show that was absolutely wild. I will never forget it in my life. and going to London and seeing the young designers there that would just set up shop in these little stalls, and she would walk in and buy the whole line and just carry it home in her suitcase. And it was the London designers that really made me start thinking I could do this myself, because there they were very young, they had no money behind them, and they were just creating 20 at a time and selling it, and then going back and creating 20 more of something at a time. So I was just really starting to feel like it was time for me to do my own thing. So I quit that job and opened up a small shop in the East Village. And the shop was between a gas station and a soup kitchen. And it was really terrifying. Sometimes I would have to open up the gate and there would be all these guys out there, and I would just be like, oh my God, if my mother could see me now. But what I learned at the job in the boutique was that there were these small factories in the garment center, and that New York was full of factories that would manufacture anything from 5 units to 500 units. So I knew that I could start a small shop, and I started by cutting 10 of something. And when we got down to the last 2, we would cut 10 more and race them up to the garment center. And as a result of having those small factories, I was able to build my business into an international brand. I was also able to learn a lot from the skilled craftsmen that were working in those factories. So we started small and then did a trade show, and then moved up to the garment center to a tiny office that was a penthouse on a roof. We used to ship, that's my husband, he was very excited that day that we were opening up our new office. And we used to ship, we got so big in this small space that we would put the clothing out on the roof. And my husband and I would pack the boxes ourselves. And sometimes we would recruit friends and then cook dinner on the roof for them. So it was a lot of fun. It was really fun in those days. There was it was a terrifying feeling starting your own business and doing things on your own, but also it was so much fun and so invigorating because you don't know where the world is going to take you. You just know you took the step you wanted to take, and then everything was, it was all up to fate and really hard work. I had a lot of times where I was ready to give up, but I'm so happy that I'm very stubborn and I won't give up. So anyway, those years were difficult because the loan, the business was really small. We started with a loan of $5,000. Eventually, we had a lot of orders. Our first trade show we did, I left there with about $250,000 in orders, and I was terrified because I had no idea how I was going to produce it. So my father mortgaged his house and gave me the money, and about 2 years later, I lost it all. So it was terrifying. So I spent 10 years paying back what was, it was about $150,000. But in those days when I was making a payment, I was paying myself about $100 a week. I was really working really hard to get it back. So when I finally paid him back and started hiring a staff, I was so, really proud of myself, felt like I had achieved so much. And now I have this beautiful design room. Well, it's kind of a chaotic, crazy design room, but I have about 7 pattern makers, 10 sewers, 5 cutters, about 10 assistant designers that do everything from designing fabrics to following up on licensing to making inspiration boards. And I feel really, really happy to be working in that kind of atelier. I like to think of myself as an artist surrounded by, all the people that help me and guide me, because it does take a lot of people to make clothing, which is one of the misconceptions, I think, that happen in the world of fashion, is that people think a designer is much like an artist. They can design a dress and then it's done. But the real work of fashion really happens after the show. The real work happens when you have to then commit to manufacturing and delivering something, and delivering a quality product, a product that fits right, a product that gets to the stores on time, and then having the follow-up delivery ready at the same time. So for me, I think that having a support group of artisans, factories, suppliers, manufacturers is really key to making fashion happen. It really is all about the big picture. So as I was growing in the garment center, I stopped going to the factories. I had been going every day, but eventually I had like a production manager and she was going to the factories, and then she had an assistant and she was going to the factories. So I didn't realize that our New York City factories were diminishing. I didn't realize that what was 80% of what was being worn in America when I started my business was being made in America. And 5 years ago, it was down to 18% of the clothing that was being worn in America was being made in America. So I had a cousin who was on the tour bus, the double-decker bus, and the announcer on the bus, as they got to the garment center, said to everyone on the bus that the New York City Garment Center was moving, that all the designers would soon be gone and they were all going to China. So she got off the bus and she came into my office and said, "When are you moving?" I was like, "Well, what are you talking about?" She said, "Well, the bus driver said that the New York City Garment Center is moving to China." And I was like, oh my God. That's when I realized that we needed a call to action. We needed to really, you're one voice, but you don't realize sometimes if you scream loud enough, one voice can be heard. So, and also if you have a big team behind you helping you scream, that helps too. But so we started with putting on a rally. We had politicians, other designers came, Michael Kors spoke, Ellie Tahari, Stephen Kolb came, Yo Lee. We had a rally and hundreds of people came. And then I did an op-ed for the New York Times talking about Labor Day and how important it was to keep, not just to keep the jobs in America, but in the case of manufacturing in America, it was keeping a future there for small companies who were startups, like I had first started. So that's a shot from one of the fashion shows where Anna Sui had actually decided that everybody should wear these t-shirts. And so we sort of customized ours. That's myself and my daughter Violet, who comes down the runway with me every show. So what I want to say is that I know that Dubai could be a fashion capital, much like New York, London, Milan, Paris. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, New York wasn't even on the map for being a fashion capital. What is driving the press and the buyers to New York isn't the big three. It's because New York has more young talent than any other fashion capital in the world. That's where the excitement is coming from. It's coming from the underground designers. It's not coming from the establishment. Those underground designers are there because they're smart and they're using the local manufacturing. They know they can go there and if they only sell 50, they don't have to call the buyer and say, sorry, I can't make those 50 because China has a minimum of 300 to 1,000, so I can't ship you this season. They know they can go deliver it themselves. I used to go out on the street with the rolls of fabric and bags of stuff to drop off and make my rounds to the factories. Anybody who really understands how to take advantage of the opportunity of having manufacturing right at your doorstep can really thrive. This is actually a picture of my design room, and we're different works in progress. That was a really beautiful digital print from 2 falls ago. And we have, and then there's factory pictures from different, that was actually a dress that we did. We manufactured, I was on Project Runway All Stars, and the winning dress got manufactured in New York City and sold on our website, and the money went to save the garment center. So that was Mondo's dress, and we sold about 600 dresses in about 3 days. It was pretty crazy. People went crazy over it. And so what else constitutes making a garment center is just having great suppliers. There's wonderful shops just for buttons, and there's shops for trimmings, and there's shops that make silk flowers, and there's shops that just do pleating. the more shops, the more suppliers, the more capabilities you have to produce and to manufacture and be sustainable in your own right. There's also more to just manufacturing close to home. It's that you can do it with a conscience. You can see the conditions people are working in. Your carbon footprint is much smaller. But I think for me, it's really all about having this sense of control, knowing that if something is not coming out right, I can fix it. Knowing that if I want to cut fill a reorder for Saks because it's selling out, I can turn it around and have it to them in 10 days. Knowing that I have better inventory control. But I also felt like the garment center issue had to be addressed for the future. I felt like I was given this opportunity. I was given this chance from coming from a really, tight background where it was a real risk for me to start a business, to knowing that I feel like I wanted the future to have that same opportunity. But with fashion and with most businesses, whether your company starts with 5,000 or 5 million, there's a commitment to work that is really important beyond just the creation of the runway. I love what I do. I feel like every day I'm given the opportunity to create something artistic and beautiful, but I also know that it's commerce. And so I have to really, in the end, come up with something that, come through and deliver. And then create a loyal following, which I've been able to do over the many years that I've been in business. So my most recent find is a really fabulous shoe factory that's manufacturing our shoes in Los Angeles. And that is it took me a long time. Shoes have been really hard for me to achieve. So I'm really happy that I'm able to work with this factory. It's a great family, and they come with a craft from I believe, from Iran. And it's really fun. It's wonderful because I'm really happy to be able to achieve also now my next step, which has been the accessory business. And I'm able to manufacture a portion of it in America. Let's see what I forgot. I think that now that we've worked so hard to raise awareness, there finally is a little acceptance from the establishment in New York. We have received donations from Ellie Tahari for saving the Garment Center. Andrew Rosen, the founder of Theory, has decided to donate money to create a design manufacturing center of excellence that will be very cutting edge and on top of, how to modernize American factories, because that was one of the complaints and the problems, that the factories weren't modern enough. But I believe that if you have, as I believe D3 it's called, right? That's the new design and manufacturing center in Dubai. It is such a gift to have the government behind you and to start to help and to push. You will only know what you need if you're manufacturing. I feel like you know the next step. You know what you need. You're ahead of the curve. If you turn all your manufacturing over to someone else, you kind of get behind the curve and you don't know what's needed and what's next and what's coming. So I strongly advocate for working with local artisans and really learning everything that they have to show you and tell you, because everyone from the woman who's sewing the dress to the pattern maker who's draping it has a skill and a knowledge that you might not have. And also, you're busy designing, but somebody might tell you a better way to sew something or a prettier place to put that seam. I've always been open. I've always absorbed everything I could learn. And I think by being hands-on and actually going out into the field, I've been able to really achieve a standard for manufacturing and for quality and for fit that has enabled me to become a larger global brand, which I'm hoping global. And I guess I have covered the idea of what did I miss? I'm asking Jimmy to step in now.
What are the ways that you would advise people in this room? What steps should people take to build a manufacturing center here? And what are the important reasons that they should do it?
Well, I mean, the important reason you should do it is because if you want to start a business, you're not going to sell 2,000 things of something, you have to be realistic about what you want to do. I started my business because I loved it. I started it not to make money, but to do something I enjoyed. And I had the opportunity to do it. So I think what you need to say to yourself is, if I want to be in fashion, if Dubai wants to be a big fashion capital, we have to maybe think a little smaller in order to get bigger. So I approached my business that way. I approached it from the idea that I'm just going to, a day at a time, I'm not going to think enormous, because that scares you when you think too big. I had to think like a month at a time. So I think that there's an advantage to slow growth, to building something slowly, to hopefully these factories that are here in the area are open and willing to do small runs, to making a relationship with the people who are making your product, so that if there's problems and situations, they'll help you solve them. I learned so much, and I made so many mistakes over the years, and I feel like if I hadn't been standing there with those factories, they would not have helped me get through some of the giant losses. I was like, you cut something upside down, or you cut a sleeve instead of a back, or, crazy things happen in factories. And if you have a smart factory to help you get through the problems, you're that much further ahead. So that's one of the ways, the reasons why and how manufacturing locally can help you. I just think it's about being realistic and knowing that to build something, it's best, it doesn't always grow fast. So you want to have all the components in place to build something small and then grow it into something really great. Okay. Okay, I'm going to do some questions now. Is that okay? Okay.
Hi, we're running a call for action. Actually, Sarah, myself, and Aza Kubaisi has been running a call for action supported by D3, British Council, and of course the local designers. Now, all that you said applies, and everybody here, especially the local designers, the younger ones, are extremely, extremely responsible, ethical, are using whatever factory resources they can get, the handcrafts people, and they're extremely ethical with their production. But we find the biggest challenge is when our consumers and our stores don't believe in us. None of our brands are able to get into stores or into malls for that matter. How do you combat that challenge? What do you think should be the steps that take us forward as a call to action? We run a call to action here and in Beirut also. In Beirut, we're having a different challenge where we're actually trying to keep the craftspeople, the Italians alive. And this young girl here, Angelique, I don't know if she's in the audience right now, who's been single-handedly championing this. How do we get our consumers to believe in us? And how do we get our stores to not say, come, leave it in consignment, we'll see how it does. How do they have that trust and say, well, we'll buy you so you can go and make your next 20 garments? It's saddening to see our designers completely kind of give up along the way.
Well, it's a really competitive time. There's a lot of designers out there right now, and every big store probably opens up the door to 3 or 4 new ones a season, and that's it. They need to see consistency. The stores want to make sure that there's a delivery ready for the next delivery and that you're shipping on time. So if you do get the opportunity to get in the store, you have to do everything because that store is taking a risk on the designer. They only have so much new open to buy. So you have to live up to your end of the bargain. So you have to make sure the clothing fits as best you possibly can. You have to make sure that you ship the best possible product and that you're ready to give them new because they want something every month, or in the case of somebody new, maybe every couple of months. But I don't think you can force the buyers to buy you. So I think you can work around it. You need your own little retail shops. A few designers need to maybe band together and share a co-op shop. You have to get them to see you and pay attention to you in another way. Just be really creative about it. And it also takes a unique person to walk into a boutique of a nobody and buy something. So you need to find those women. Start, go after your local bloggers, have little parties, dress some of the it girls, and it really takes a lot of self-invention and self-creation to get everyone's attention. And it is just what it is, and so you've got to do your best to work around it. Have tiny trade fairs. I didn't have a fashion show till I was in business for 10 years. I did my brand through trade shows. Like, I grew my brand through trade shows. I was really happy that I waited because I felt like when you do a show, the potential to be slammed with big orders is huge. So you kind of want a few seasons where you're learning. And I learned through my own retail and then through selling wholesale, but through, it takes years before you're super confident. And the department stores expect you to come in at a highly professional level right away. So it's not always the best thing. It can ruin a designer right away. So in my opinion, it's best to, if you can afford to stay small as long as you can.
Are you wholesaling, retailing, and selling online? And what percentages do you attribute to each? And is online the way forward?
Well, I have 6 freestanding stores in the States and 2 in Tokyo. And I have an online store, which is my number 1 door right now. And I do wholesale to Bergdorf Goodman, Saks, Neiman Marcus, and several small specialty stores in the States. My global distribution is still kind of small, and so I really want to see that increase. But really, the beauty of the online selling is that we can get our voice out there. I can do like blasts, and I can do great ad campaigns, and it really can enhance the branding. I can put out my message the way I want people to see it. They can see the full look of what I'm selling. And we give, women something fun to fantasize about, whereas otherwise you expect them to walk in the store. Online selling it's a dream because you can get to your customer and you don't have to wait for them to come to you.
You mentioned trade shows. So how many seasons did you do trade shows before you actually found your first big order, before you got your first big order? And in general, as a designer, I know that trade shows are super expensive. They're like money drain, and they're also sometimes really difficult to get into the right trade show. So what advice do you have for up-and-coming designers who want to position themselves in a way that, they want to be taken seriously, so they want to be there at the trade show season after season, but how do you get into the right ones, and how do you deal from a business perspective with the fact that it's such a money drain?
Well, when I started, there was the Coterie, which is the big trade show in New York, which I still do. I don't. Every couple months we're moving on to the pier, which is really annoying, but it's where the customers are, so you have to go to them. But the Coterie had a juried show that was 5 new designers that got a really discounted rate. So if you could possibly get to your trade show organizers and say, and you got 2 shows at like $1,000 per show, which was amazing. And my line boomed the first trade show. We left, there was so many orders, we were shocked. But then, there's always been an ebb and flow to business. After that, it went down and then it went up. But I think that you can't ever walk away from the trade shows if you're serious about business, because that's where the business happens. But it is I don't know if the opportunities for I don't know how expensive they are anymore. I don't know if they still offer small shows. What we did at one point was we noticed that before New York had the official Fashion Week, because they really didn't have official organized runway shows until a little over 20 years ago. Then the runway shows happened, and it was just a few designers doing them, and the tents felt too expensive. So I went together with 5 designers, and we called it the 5 Show, and we took over a floor at one of the hotels in Midtown, and we had this cute little show, and a lot of buyers came by, and it was like a nice, it was a cool hotel. I can't remember which one it was, and it brought a lot of buyers to us, and it's just trying to work together and finding ways to creatively reach the customer.
And you're all New York-based designers.
Yes, and I'm not sure if you have trade shows here in Dubai,
No. No, we don't.
so you have to go to
Yet.
Paris or.
Yeah, we have to do
That's
the
hard.
circuit.
I
But
know.
that's the thing. I mean, that's why it's so much more of a money drain for us, because we need to travel, carry the collection, carry the human resources, and also it's not our hometown. So even we don't, like you must know the press, the buyers, you've got your, it's your. Things, whereas here we know things, but there it's a totally new market, so it's just more challenging for us to do that.
Lobby your government to pay for a ballroom in a hotel in Paris and have a juried selection of 8 designers and go over there and show the world that you're here.
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. Okay, D3. Bong has just informed me that Fashion Forward is doing that soon, so
Oh, that's exciting.
yeah, no, it's definitely, I think we're definitely on the right track, and that's why I really think that all the designers are so excited about Fashion Forward, and having people like you come on board and help and support and just give us advice. So it's all cool. It's all awesome. Thank you.